Does The Last of Us television show need to exist? I think the answer is yes. And more importantly, is the TV show worth your time? The answer is most certainly yes. I think we're in really good hands here, especially since Neil Druckmann is going to be creatively attached to the project, just as he was in the video game. I think you're going to get a lot of his original vision and thought and concept injected into it. And he really was the heart and soul of the first Last of Us. So that the fact that he is so intimately involved with the television show lets me know that I think it's going to be in a good place. And I'm really, really excited for that. The first episode absolutely deals with this sense of impending dread that's coming. And I think it's something that is handled so well because you got to think about how this works in video game worlds versus television, like scripted movies or films, right? In a video game, they can inject tension in things like scavenging a corpse for bullets while another enemy is about to advance on your position, or crafting items in real time while you're trying to flee from other enemies, or various sound effects, or your flashlight dying and having to shake your controller to turn it back on, where you can get more of like a jump scare because your character is kind of zoomed in and you lose some of your peripheral vision. Things like that can inject fear and nervousness into a video game, those video game tropes that exist. But they've taken that fear and that sense of impending doom and they've injected it into a television show in, I think, a wonderful way. You can totally feel that something bad is about to happen to Sarah in the first moments of the television show when she's out trying to get a watch fixed for her father and the shopkeeper starts acting really sketchy. And you're seeing and hearing helicopters flying overhead and police sirens going by. Remember, this takes place in 2003. Social media didn't exist back then. So it wasn't as easy as pulling up your phone and checking Twitter or Instagram to see kind of what is going on in the world. Here, you just don't know. You know there's something out there, but you don't know what it is. And in addition to that, you're watching this unfold from the eyes of a little girl who definitely doesn't have that world experience to know that, like, hey, something is horribly going wrong. I equate a lot of this to, and because the subject matter is so close, the beginning of COVID. I think a lot of us collectively knew the writing was on the wall. Something bad was going to happen to us. We just didn't know what. And it was sitting around and trying to live your normal life and trying to go to work and go grocery shopping and seeing that there's this devastating virus on the other side of the world that's slowly approaching. And it's that impending sense of doom and dread. And I think this encapsulates that feeling so well. Even if COVID wasn't a thing, even if when I remember playing this game when it first came out, feeling that sense of, wow, we are really seeing an apocalypse unfold in such a dynamic way. And look at how quickly things go south when Tommy and Joel and Ellie Tommy, Joel, and Sarah are driving through the city streets and people are rioting and buildings are on fire and things are starting to break down at a very rapid level. You start to see that, wow, society has absolutely come completely unhinged. You get that, obviously, that really, really tense scene where Sarah gets shot and killed by a scared young soldier who is following orders, which is just such a tragedy, right? And then we get this jump cut where you're inside a walled city and you're like, hey, maybe we're safe. No, it's not any better. In some ways, it's actually worse. It's a very militarized state. People are scrapping together resources for basic rations, and there's a lot of black market smuggling and stealing going on. And obviously, we come to find Joel and Tess. This is their livelihood now. But you get that sense that the world is just as broken now as it wasn't before. And you just see it in a different way. And it kind of gives you this sense of hopelessness and dread leading into, obviously, where the game is going to go. We obviously know with Joel and Ellie's story, but you see that every character handles that slightly differently. And Joel continues to remain a somewhat broken man, and he's living his life for really reasons unknown other than survival for survival's sake. When you kind of place all those pieces together, I think it is very easy for this television show to fail just by laying on these overarching and sense impending doom and dread constantly. But The actors do such a phenomenal job, and a lot of the dialogue is borrowed directly from the game or very, very close to the game, where there's a lot of care and taken into kind of writing that script. But you do instantly connect to these characters. At least I did. And the first time we see Tess, she's got a black eye, she's gotten beaten up, and she's just trying to stay alive. And then very quickly, she's like, hey, we need to get revenge on this Robert guy, and we need to go kill him and get our battery back. And we need to start, on the offensive here. You could see just how tit for tat this world has become and how cutthroat it's become. So introducing a character like Ellie, who is very clearly sheltered up in her life for a very significant part of it, kind of being passed around as this test subject, right? I mean, that's kind of the point of the game here. It's interesting to see her experience the world through different eyes than Joel and Tess do. And the one scene that really sticks out to me, and they do mention it, if you haven't watched the end of the episode, they do a kind of like behind the scenes thing with HBO, and I think it's phenomenal, definitely worth watching. But there's something they mentioned, and I did pick up on this. When Joel is beating that soldier to death, his friend, the guy who he was trading with before and, smuggling drugs for, beating this guy to death, just punching him in the face repeatedly. Joel has this anger and hatred on his face, and he's kind of reliving what happened with his daughter, Sarah, 20 years ago. Ellie, on the other hand, is almost smiling and leaning into it and getting into what's happening. And I was watching this with my wife, and I was like, Ellie's enjoying this. And that's really something you don't see in the video game. And that's definitely where a lot of these differences start to kind of emerge. I think they have a really cool space here where we can start to get different perspectives of how things are going based on music cues and based on how the game is actually, or how the TV show is going to be filmed as opposed to how the game is filmed, whether it's like a really close up, like hand camera where the camera's kind of bouncing, like we're in on the action, or is it panned out, or all these different things, but you're going to get a different look at the same event. It's almost like watching something from a set of security cameras and seeing it from different angles and kind of piecing together the story. And I love that. And I don't remember thinking that Ellie was almost getting into what Joel is doing, which is horrifying. But to her, she has somebody now. She has a protector almost immediately in Joel, a guy that kind of dismisses her, but obviously we'll learn that they grow very close together. But early on, kind of dismissing her. But the fact that she is so willing to, be protected by him in a sense, she hasn't had that before. So really masterclass in everything about this episode. I'm sure there are other YouTube channels with much more time and resources than me to compare shot for shot, scene for scene, moment for moment. There were definitely a few things that they added in the television show that didn't exist in the video game, but I thought they worked very, very well. And I think the point of the first episode really was that, introduction into who they were and where they are now and kind of setting up that tale. And I think they did a phenomenal job of getting right into the action, making it suspenseful, and giving us a clear objective for our heroes now, which is something that I feel a lot of TV shows struggle with. You think back to Lord of the Rings when you're watching episode 1, 2, 3, and you're kind of waiting like, okay, when is the show going to start? And here I think it just jumps right into it and you get engaged. So from a critical film perspective, it's awesome. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the game, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Even though I already know, I'm still excited and absolutely invested. And I have to say that looking across this new generation of video game adaptations, whether it be Halo or Resident Evil or The Last of Us, I think Last of Us right now is a masterclass on taking source material, putting a positive spin on it, injecting a little bit of uniqueness to it, and making it much, much better almost than the original material. And I'm excited for this, and I want this show to succeed because I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this universe, and I want to see more adaptation of video games translated into video formats, into episodic television shows, or into movies with as much care and finesse as The Last of Us. I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on episode 1 of The Last of Us. I'll be back again next week with commentary on episode number 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.